Going to turn our attention to sports. The IEG World Sports Sponsorship Conference kicked off in Chicago this week. The three-day event features leaders across the sports industry. Yahoo Finance's Dan Roberts is there, and he's got a special guest for us. Dan?
All right, thanks, Adam. Yes, we're here with the Commissioner of MLS, Don Garber. Don, thanks for being here.
It's good to be back, Dan.
Let's start with expansion news. You know, just this week, we had the first ever home game for Cincinnati. You guys are opening up in new cities so quickly, and we just did our interview on stage. It was very interesting. You were saying you don't necessarily think there's any city that wouldn't work for a new MLS team.
You know, I really believe that. I mean, I never would have thought that you'd have 32,000 people at an opening game for Cincinnati and 25,000 season tickets. I mean, they're in the top 3 in Major League Soccer today, and there's no real professional soccer history there. So, I mean, this has all evolved over the last number of years. I think it bodes well for MLS, but also bodes well for the second leagues and the third leagues. You think about where baseball is. They've got hundreds of professional teams. They're just operating at different levels.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned baseball. You know, big news of the week in baseball, Mike Trout getting this giant contract, 12 years, $430 million. And when you look at a contract like that, and then we look at what happens in MLS with, you know, a lot of the biggest stars come from internationally. Of course, MLS wants to have more homegrown stars that start in MLS. But when you look at the size of that baseball contract, I mean, where are things headed in contracts for pro athletes? And is MLS eventually, or are we going to get to that point in terms of athlete pay?
You know, I hope it never gets to that point, or when it does, and if it does, it will be because our revenues are so massive that we'll be able to support it. I mean, players' salaries are generally a function of the size of the overall business and what piece of the pie players get of total revenue, so that if we ever get to the point where we can pay players, you know, $10, $20, $30, $40 million a year, it means our league can sustain it. So we'll see. Life's a long time. I've learned that. I never thought MLS would be, you know, 20 soccer stadiums and 27, soon to be 28 teams. So you never know. I never say never on anything anymore.
We're talking about MLS and money. Have to ask you about sports betting. Just this week, MLS announced MGM as its gaming partner. Now, Major League Baseball, the NBA and NHL also went with MGM. The NFL, for its first gaming partner, did Caesars. Talk to me about partnering with MGM. What will that mean for Major League Soccer?
Well, you know, MGM was so focused on understanding what it was that we were looking for with a partner, fan engagement, how to effectively utilize data to be able to connect current fans and potential fans with a unique engagement, this concept of sports betting. And they're really smart. They really understand the sports space. I mean, they are in the business of putting on sports events, and they are clearly really sharp and have an analytical approach to how they're approaching sports betting. We're very pleased and excited about the partnership. I think it will be about growing our fan base and hopefully making as much money as we and they possibly can.
Right now, the sports betting landscape in America is going state by state. We have 8 states total that have moved to legalize sports betting in their state. Does the fact that it is fragmented like that, it is state by state, does that complicate it for you guys? Does that make it harder for you to think about how to integrate legal sports betting in the sport?
Well, I don't know that it makes it harder. It makes it more complicated, right? Because it's so much easier to do a national deal than have to do 50 deals. And the unique thing, what's happening, and I think this will change over time, is every single state is going about it differently. I don't think there's any state that's done it the same way, you know, as each other. So every local club now has got to figure out how do they engage in a way that makes sense based on the law as it's been passed in that particular state. So it now has been pushed down from the league, for the most part, to the clubs for them to figure out what's the best approach.
We have the chance to break a little news here. Okay, just this week or within the last week, you had a dinner with the president of FIFA.
I didn't think it was newsworthy.
Well, no, I think it's interesting. The president of FIFA and David Beckham.
Right.
Give us a little inside look.
Right.
What was discussed at that dinner? What came out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd start to say it was a social dinner. I mean, what I really like about the new FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, he's a young guy. You know, he was the number 2 guy at UEFA. He was the guy that came up with all the commercial programs there. He's really smart. And he understands what's happening in our country, understands what's happening in MLS, very focused on what's happening in 2026. And when you got a guy like David, who's a global icon, a global superstar, involved in a league, in a city, I think Gianni just wanted to get an understanding of what's happening. So it was fun. You know, we went to a great Japanese restaurant and we all had a good time. We did have his number 2 guy running competition, a guy named Boban, who's one of the most successful players in European football history, to see he and David interact together. Jorge Mas, who's David's partner in Miami, was there, and they're the local guys. I thought it was important for David and Jorge to meet Gianni and to meet the head of CONCACAF, Victor Montagliani, because their headquarters is in Miami. We got a really cool thing going on in Miami, and just won a big vote there yesterday. Got another big vote coming up on our stadium site. Important, but fun social dinner, Dan. No big news.
I'm glad you mentioned Miami. Let's end on that, because the ownership group of this forthcoming Miami MLS team is sort of so Yahoo Finance. It's all business leaders.
Yeah.
Yes, you've got David Beckham, who sounds like he's very involved.
He's a giant business guy, too.
Well, and then
Dude.
Marcel Claret, and then Masayoshi Son of SoftBank.
Yeah.
That ownership group, it's all business guys, VC guys. Talk to me a little bit about that and the effort there to start Miami FC.
It is a dream ownership group. Marcelo and the Mas family, they're local. So we needed to have a local owner. It's a complicated market. It's a very politically disjointed market, not because it's just the structure of the states and the county and the city and the way they all work together. And we needed a strong local group. Marcelo and Jorge Mas give us that. But now we have a global business icon in Marcelo and Masa Son. And you put David into it. I mean, David is, most people don't understand, and they'll see more and more of him. He is a global icon as a celebrity, but his business acumen, his skill set, his ability to manage a myriad of different opportunities is just so cool. Really cool. By the way, I'm speaking with him in 5 minutes, so we got to wrap this up in the next
Okay, he's got a call with David Beckham he has to get to. By the way, worth mentioning, MLS, our 2018 Yahoo Finance Sports Business of the Year. So Don Garber, Commissioner, thanks for joining us. Back to you guys.
Dan, thank you very much.